Hi everyone. The title of our section today is Points, Lines, and Planes. But before we talk about any of those things, let's talk about geometry, because that's really what we're starting today. So this is going to be our main topic for second semester for almost the rest of the whole school year, really. We're going to be talking about geometry. Now, what geometry is a branch of math where you study shapes. Now, we can study two-dimensional or flat shapes. That would be things triangle, circle, square, rectangle. You've seen a lot of that already. We're going to go into it a little bit more depth, but you've definitely seen some of that. Or you can also study three-dimensional, or I'll call it 3D for short, three-dimensional shapes like sphere, cylinder, pyramid, cone, things like that. We're going to spend a lot of time on two-dimensional shapes and some time on 3D shapes. Now, in order to do that, we need to start out with the basics, and that comes back to the title of this section, point, line, and plane. We want to start with those three things. So let's start with a plane. A plane is a flat surface. It can be any flat surface at all. It's basically like in order to even have a shape, you have to have somewhere to put it. So I said your plane could be your piece of paper that you're doing homework on. It could be my whiteboard or my computer screen right here for the video notes. Basically, any flat surface that you're doing work on is called a plane. Now, a point is a location in a plane. We've done points before. You know, first semester we did a lot of graphing and we plotted a point x comma y. It's like that, but it's not a coordinate plane. It's not going to be x, y anymore. It's just going to be kind of a location in the plane. Now, when you're naming points, very simple, just call them letters. We usually use single capital letters, point A, point B, point C, point P, Q, R, whatever you want to name them. But we're going to name our points using single letters. And then line. Remember that the three basics are point, line, and plane. So plane is our flat surface we're working on. A point is a location. And one interesting thing about a point, technically it's not even there. It doesn't actually fill up space. We draw a little dot to show our point, but all we're doing is marking a location in a plane. And then a line. So a line extends through any 2 points forever in both directions. Now, the way we're going to name our lines, a lot of studying geometry has to do with understanding the vocabulary and the notation, the naming conventions. The way you name a line, or one way to name a line, is to pick any 2 points on the line, write those 2 letters, like if it was A and B, I would write AB. If it was P and Q, PQ. And then above those 2 letters, you draw a line. Draw a little line above it with the 2 arrows on each side. So what you're saying, what I highlighted in yellow there is line AB. That would be a line that goes through the points A and B. Or the second example I made up was line PQ. That would be a line that goes through points P and Q. You can also name a line using a single letter. It's usually script or like handwriting. Also usually lowercase, and you just write it next to the line. So I'm going to show you an example of this right now. Let's look at this picture here. Now, before I even say anything about the picture, what we have is a plane. That pink shape is representing a plane. There are 2 lines in this picture. One of the lines is in the plane, and one of them is kind of crossing through the plane. And then you have that extra point V up there in the top left corner. Now you also have a name for the plane. So you see that capital R in the bottom right hand corner of the pink shape? That's the name of the plane. So we would call this plane R. Plane, you can name a plane kind of like a point with just one letter. So plane R is the pink shape. Now the line that is in plane R, and I'll highlight it here just so we all know which one we're talking about. I highlight it in yellow here. This line here, oops, Missed there. Could do better than that. This line here is the one that's in plane R. And I said it has many names because there's 3 points marked on it, S, P, and T. I can name it using any 2 of those points. So for example, I could call it line SP, or line PT, or line ST. You know, I pick any 2 points on the line and I can use them to name it. But I can also just call it line M. So this is what I meant. If I just put one single lowercase letter over here, that M right there, that can also be the name of the line. So one of the things I said this just a few minutes ago, a big part of geometry is understanding all the naming conventions. If I talk about line SP, or line PT, or line ST, or just line M, it's all the same line. I just have different names for it. Now, line N, see here's the N up here, or I could also call that one line PQ because it goes through the points P and Q. That one is not in plane R. You can see how it's kind of crossing through plane R, but it's not inside the plane itself like line M is. So that's our naming conventions for lines and a good example of a picture that has some points and some lines and some planes in it. Let's learn some important vocabulary for points, lines, and planes. So the first one is the word intersection. Now, when things intersect, they cross over. So basically, the intersection of any 2 shapes is their overlap, where they cross over. Collinear. Now, we know what linear means. Linear means a line. Co means share or the same. So 2 things are collinear if they are on the same line. And I can do the same thing with a plane. I can say coplanar is any 2 things that are in the same plane. So 3 important vocab words are going to be asked about in the homework today. I'm going to give you some shapes and say what's the intersection. I'm going to ask you, are they collinear, are they coplanar? So let's go back to our same picture and talk about some of these words. Same picture from before. I'm going to say line SP. Now that's line M. You know, remember we have a lot of names for it. It's the line that is in plane R. And I said line SP and point V, that one up on the top left corner there, are coplanar. Coplanar means in the same plane. So what I have is I have that line there. In fact, I'll highlight them in yellow again like I did last time. I have this line right here and this point right here. Those 2 are both inside the pink plane, so we say they are coplanar. They're in the same plane. Points S, P, and T are collinear. Now remember, collinear means on the same line. And again, it's the yellow line, the one I highlighted in yellow. You can see S, P, and T are all on the same line, so they're collinear. Now here's a tricky thing about collinear. Points V and Q are also collinear, even though you don't see the line in the picture. If you can draw a line that goes through them, then they are still collinear. So some people may have, if I ask you the question, are points V and Q collinear? Some people might have said, no, they aren't. They're not on the same line. I don't see a line there. But even though you can't see it, there is a line that goes through V and Q, like that. Even if you don't see the actual line, if you can draw it in yourself, that still counts as collinear. And then our last vocab word was intersection. So if I ask you what is the intersection of lines M and N, that means where they cross over, and where those 2 things cross over is that point right there. Line M and line N cross at a point, and the point is point P. So the intersection of lines M and N is point P. And that's our vocab for today. So we have a lot of new terms. This is our setup section for what's coming. We're learning geometry. We're learning point, line, and plane. We're learning intersection, coplanar, and collinear. And then we can move on from there. Once you know lines, you can learn angles and triangles and all these different shapes. We're building our foundation, I